So the Egyptians at this time had many gods, dozens. And in these next few chapters, we're going to see God bring various plagues to Egypt. Now, these plagues were meant not only to free the Hebrew slaves, but more importantly, they were meant to show Pharaoh and all the Egyptian people that there is only one true God, the Lord, the Eternal One, the God of Israel. Now, with that being said, let's turn to Exodus chapter 7. And the Lord, that's the Jehovah, the Eternal One, or the self-existent One, said unto Moses, See, I have made thee a god to Pharaoh. See, Pharaoh was considered the greatest god of Egypt, and God is saying to Moses, I am going to make you greater. Thou shalt speak to Aaron, all that I command thee, and Aaron thy brother shall speak unto Pharaoh, that he send the children of Israel out of his land. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and multiply my signs and my wonders in the land of Egypt. But Pharaoh shall not hearken unto you, that I may lay my hand upon Egypt, and bring forth mine armies, that's the Hebrew slaves, and my people, the children of Israel, out of the land of Egypt by great judgments. And the Egyptians, that's all the Egyptians, shall know that I, not the Egyptian gods, but I am the Lord, when I stretch forth mine hand upon Egypt, and bring out the children of Israel from among them. And Moses and Aaron did as the Lord commanded them, so did they. And Moses was 80 years old, that's 80 years old, and Aaron 83 years old, when they spake unto Pharaoh. And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, When Pharaoh shall speak unto you, saying, Show a miracle for you, then thou shalt say unto Aaron, Take thy rod, and cast it before Pharaoh, and it shall become a serpent. And Moses and Aaron went in unto Pharaoh, and they did so as the Lord had commanded. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent. Then Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers. Now the magicians of Egypt, they also did in like manner with their enchantments. So these sorcerers, these magicians, are not like the magicians we think of today, like when we think of Penn and Teller. These were practitioners in black magic. They were pagan priests of these pagan Egyptian gods. For they cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents. That's plural. But Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. So when Aaron picked up his rod, the magicians had no rod to pick up. This was the first attack upon the Egyptian gods. Epi, or Apophis, was the god of evil, or the devourer of the dead, symbolized by a serpent or a snake. Amut was basically the same deity, but represented by a crocodile. Verse 13, And he, that's God, hardened Pharaoh's heart, that he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had said. And the Lord, again Jehovah, the self-existent One, said unto Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hardened, he refuses to let the people go. Get thee unto Pharaoh in the morning. Lo, he goeth out unto the water, and thou shalt stand by the river's brink against he come. And the rod which was turned into a serpent, that's Aaron's rod, shalt thou take in thine hand. And thou shalt say unto him, The Lord God, that's the Eternal One, the one true God of the Hebrews, has sent me unto thee, saying, Let my people go, that they may serve me in the wilderness. And behold, hitherto thou wouldest not hear. Thus saith the Lord, In this thou shalt know that I am the Lord, that I am the Eternal One. Behold, I will smite with the rod that is in mine hand upon the waters which are in the river, and they shall be turned to blood. Now this is the second attack on the Egyptian gods. Chpt is the goddess of the Nile, the sustainer of life. Verse 18, And the fish that is in the river shall die, and the rivers shall stink, and the Egyptians shall loathe to drink the water of the river. And the Lord spake unto Moses, Say unto Aaron, Take thy rod, and stretch out thine hand upon the waters of Egypt, upon their streams, upon the rivers, and upon their ponds, and upon all the pools of water, that they may become blood, and that there may be blood throughout all the land of Egypt, both in the vessels of wood and in the vessels of stone. And Moses and Aaron did so as the Lord had commanded. And he, that's Aaron, lifted up the rod and smote the waters that were in the river in the sight of Pharaoh and in the sight of his servants, and all the waters that were in the river turned to blood. And the fish, also considered to be the Egyptian god Rem and the goddess Hetmehet, that was in the river, died, And the river stank, and the Egyptians could not drink the water of the river, and there was blood throughout all the land of Egypt. And the magicians of Egypt did so with their enchantments. So whatever drinkable water was left, the magicians also turned to blood. Notice that these magicians couldn't stand against God. They could only do God's will by multiplying the plagues upon Egypt. And Pharaoh's heart was hardened, neither did he hearken unto them, as the Lord had said. And Pharaoh turned and went into his house, neither did he set his heart to this also. So Pharaoh, after seeing his magicians or these pagan priests doing the same miracles, probably thought that he had no reason to fear the Lord. After all, the Hebrews had only one God, and the Egyptians had many gods. And also, if this God of the Hebrews was so powerful, why are the Hebrews the slaves to the Egyptians? Verse 24, And all the Egyptians digged round about the river for water to drink, for they could not drink the water of the river. And 7 days were fulfilled after that the Lord had smitten the river. Now, before we go any further, understand that these magicians were just mortal beings. They had no miraculous abilities whatsoever. Now, some commentators believe that these magicians, because they practiced the black arts, got their power from some demonic forces. But I disagree. God does all things, and he does all things for his good purpose. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 45, verse 7. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. Exodus chapter 8. And the Lord spake unto Moses, Go unto Pharaoh and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord, that's the Jehovah, the self-existent one, Let my people go, that they may serve me. And if thou refuse to let them go, behold, I will smite all thy borders with frogs. Also an Egyptian god called Chpt, the goddess of fertility and childbearing. And the rivers shall bring forth frogs abundantly, which shall go up and come into thine house, and into thy bedchambers, and upon thy bed, and into the house of thy servants, and upon thy people, and into thine ovens, and into thy kneading troughs. So many, many frogs. And the frogs shall come up both on thee, and upon thy people, and upon all thy servants. You're going to be so sick of them. And the Lord spake unto Moses, Say unto Aaron, Stretch forth thine hand with thine rod over the streams, over the rivers, and over the ponds, and cause frogs to come up upon the land of Egypt. And Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Egypt, and the frogs came up and covered the land of Egypt. And the magicians did so with their enchantments, and brought up frogs upon the land of Egypt. And this would be the last time that God allows the magicians of Egypt to duplicate these plagues. Verse 8. Then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron, and said, Entreat the Lord, that's the self-existent one, that he may take away the frogs from me and from my people, and I will let the people go, that they may do sacrifice unto the Lord. Sounds like Pharaoh is starting to recognize the one true God. And Moses said unto Pharaoh, Glory over me, or tell me, when shall I entreat for thee, and for thy servants, and for thy people, to destroy the frogs from thee and thy houses, that they may remain in the river only? And he, that's Pharaoh, said, Tomorrow. And he, Moses, said, Be it according to thy words, that thou mayest know that there is none like unto the Lord, that's the Eternal One, our God, the God of Israel. And the frogs shall depart from thee, and from thy houses, and from thy servants, and from thy people. They shall remain in the rivers only. And Moses and Aaron went out from Pharaoh, and Moses cried unto the Lord because of the frogs which he had brought against Pharaoh. And the Lord did according to the word of Moses, and the frogs died out of the houses, out of the villages, and out of the fields. And they gathered them together upon heaps, and the land stank. But when Pharaoh saw that there was respite, he hardened his heart, or God hardened his heart, and he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had said. And the Lord said unto Moses, Say unto Aaron, Stretch out thy rod, and smitest the dust of the land, that it may become lice throughout all the land of Egypt. So Geb was the Egyptian god of the earth, and they did so, for Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod and smote the dust of the earth, and it became lice in man and in beast. All the dust of the land became lice throughout all the land of Egypt. And the magicians did so with their enchantments to bring forth lice, but they could not, because God no longer had need of them. So there was lice upon man and upon beast. And the magicians said unto Pharaoh, This is the finger of God. And Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had said. So Pharaoh is really digging in here. He's letting his pride get the best of him. And the Lord said unto Moses, Rise up early in the morning, and stand before Pharaoh. Lo, he cometh forth to the water, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord, thus saith the self-existent one, Let my people go, that they may serve me. Else, if thou wilt not let my people go, behold, I will send swarms of flies upon thee, and upon thy servants, and upon thy people, and into thy houses, and the houses of the Egyptians shall be full with the swarms of flies, and also the ground whereon they are. Now Chpt was the Egyptian god of creation and rebirth. And I will sever in that day the land of Goshen, that's the northern part of Egypt, in which my people dwell, that no swarms of flies shall be there, to the end thou mayest know that I am the Lord, I am the Eternal One, in the midst of the earth. And I will put a division between my people and thy people. Tomorrow shall this sign be. And the Lord did so, and there came a grievous swarm of flies unto the house of Pharaoh, and into his servants' houses, and into all the land of Egypt. The land was corrupted by reasons of the swarms of flies. And Pharaoh called for Moses and for Aaron, and said, Go ye, sacrifice to your God in the land, not the 3 days' journey that God requires, but in the land. And Moses said, It is not meet or right so to do, for we shall sacrifice the abominations of the Egyptians to the Lord our God. So the abominations of the Egyptians are their false gods, one of which is Hathor, the god of love, who resembles a cow, which of course would be one of the sacrificial animals that the Hebrews would offer to the Lord. Lo, shall we sacrifice the abominations of the Egyptians before their eyes, and they will not stone us? We will go 3 days' journey into the wilderness and sacrifice to the Lord, that's the Eternal One, our God, as he shall command us. And Pharaoh said, I will let you go, that ye may sacrifice to the Lord your God in the wilderness, only ye shall not go very far away. Entreat for me, or ask for me. So Pharaoh is again showing a little humility here, but God is not yet done with him. Verse 29, And Moses said, Behold, I go out from thee, and I will entreat the Lord that the swarms of flies may depart from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people tomorrow. But let not Pharaoh deal deceitfully any more in letting the people go to sacrifice to the Lord. And Moses went out from Pharaoh and entreated the Lord. And the Lord did according to the words of Moses, and he removed the swarms of flies from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people. There remained not one. And Pharaoh hardened his heart. Again, God hardened his heart. At this time also, neither would he let the people go. Now this was the last of the plagues that Aaron had a part in. God performs the remaining plagues by Moses alone. Exodus chapter 9. Then the Lord said unto Moses, Go in unto Pharaoh, and tell him, Thus saith the Lord, again the Eternal One, the God of the Hebrews, as opposed to the Egyptian gods, Let my people go, that they may serve me. For if thou refuse to let them go, and will hold them still, behold, the hand of the Lord is upon thy cattle which is in the field, upon the horses, upon the asses, upon the camels, upon the oxen, and upon the sheep. There shall be a very grievous murrain. Murrain is pestilence. So now the Egyptian god of love was called Hathor. And the Lord shall sever between the cattle of Israel and the cattle of Egypt, and there shall nothing die of all that is the children of Israel. And the Lord appointed a set time, saying, Tomorrow the Lord shall do this thing in the land. And the Lord did that thing on the morrow, and all the cattle of Egypt died, but the cattle of the children of Israel died not one. And Pharaoh sent, and behold, there was not one of the cattle of the Israelites dead, and the heart of Pharaoh was hardened by God, and he did not let the people go. And the Lord said unto Moses and unto Aaron, Take to you handfuls of ashes of the furnace, and let Moses sprinkle it towards the heaven in the sight of Pharaoh. Now there are two different thoughts as to what these furnaces were. Some believe they were the furnaces that the Hebrews used to bake their bricks. Others, such as Dr. Bullinger, say these were altars to which the Egyptians would offer sacrifices to their god Typhon or Set, the wife of Anubis, also known as the Evil One. Now this makes sense considering the context of these chapters, And if this is true, I'm sure these furnaces were being used a lot to try and stop all the plagues by the Lord. And here we see Moses using the very ashes from these altars to bring another plague to Egypt and showing the impotence of these false gods of Egypt. And this attack was also against Isis, the Egyptian goddess of medicine and peace. Verse 9, and it shall become small dust in all the land of Egypt, and shall be a boil breaking forth with blains upon man and upon beast throughout all the land of Egypt. And they took ashes of the furnace and stood before Pharaoh, and Moses sprinkled it up towards heaven, and it became a boil breaking forth with blains upon man and upon beast. And the magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boils, for the boil was upon the magicians and upon all the Egyptians. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had spoken unto Moses. And the Lord said unto Moses, rise up early in the morning, and stand before Pharaoh, and say unto him, thus saith the Lord God of the Hebrews, let my people go, that they may serve me. For I will at this time send all my plagues upon thine heart, and upon thy servants, and upon thy people, that thou mayest know that there is none. There is no God, including all the gods of Egypt, like me in all the earth. For now I will stretch out my hand, that I may smite thee and thy people with pestilence, and thou shalt be cut off from the earth. And in very deed for this cause have I raised thee up. In other words, the only reason why you're alive is for me to show in thee my power, that my name may be declared throughout all the earth. As yet exaltest thou thyself against my people, that thou wilt not let them go? Behold, tomorrow about this time I will cause it to rain a very grievous hail, such as hath not been in Egypt since the foundation thereof, even until now. Now this next plague was an attack against the Egyptian goddess Nut, who was the goddess of the sky. Verse 19, send therefore now, or tell your people, gather thy cattle and all that thou hast in the field, for upon every man and beast which shall be found in the field, and shall not be brought home, the hail shall come down upon them, and they shall die. So God is saying to Moses, tell the people to choose now between their goddess Nut or the one true God. Verse 20, he that feared the word of the Lord among the servants of Pharaoh made his servants and his cattle flee into the houses. And he that regarded not the word of the Lord, those that trusted in the Egyptian goddess Nut, left his servants and his cattle in the field. And the Lord said unto Moses, stretch forth thine hand toward heaven, that there may be hail in all the land of Egypt, upon man and upon beast, and upon every herb of the field, throughout all the land of Egypt. And Moses stretched forth his rod toward heaven, and the Lord sent thunder and hail, and the fire ran along upon the ground, and the Lord rained hail upon the land of Egypt. So there was hail and fire, or lightning, mingled with the hail, very grievous, such as there was none like it in all the land of Egypt since it became a nation. And the hail smote throughout all the land of Egypt, all that was in the field, both man and beast. And the hail smote every herb of the field, and brake every tree of the field. Only in the land of Goshen, where the children of Israel were, was there no hail. And Pharaoh sent and called for Moses and Aaron, and said unto them, now listen to the sincerity in Pharaoh's voice. I have sinned this time. The Lord is righteous, and I and my people are wicked. Whoa, is Pharaoh repenting here? It does seem so, doesn't it? Verse 28, entreat the Lord, for it is enough that there be no more mighty thunderings and hails, and I will let you go, and ye shall stay no longer. And Moses said unto him, as soon as I am gone out of the city, I will spread abroad my hands unto the Lord, and the thunder shall cease. Neither shall there be any more hail, that thou mayest know how that the earth is the Lord's. But as for thee and thy servants, I know that ye will not yet fear the Lord God. And how can Moses know this? Because he knows God is not yet done with him. And the flax and the barley were smitten, for the barley was in the air, and the flax was bold. But the wheat and the rye were not smitten, for they were not yet grown up. They were still in the seed. And Moses went out of the city from Pharaoh, and spread abroad his hands unto the Lord, and the thunders and the hail ceased, and the rain was not poured upon the earth. And when Pharaoh saw that the rain and the hail and the thunders were ceased, he sinned yet more, and hardened his heart, he and his servants. And the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, neither would he let the children of Israel go, as the Lord had spoken by Moses. So we see here that God is in total control and that he's not quite finished with Pharaoh. Let's go to chapter 10.